Good morning, darlings. Today we're going to be dealing with first impressions of Scrooge. So this paragraph is taken from the bottom of the first page of your novella, which is on A4. If you're using some other format, I really can't help you. I don't know why you're doing that, to be fair, but whatever. So I'm just going to read through this bit here, this paragraph, just because there are a couple of words here that do fall under the ambitious vocabulary umbrella, and you may not have come across them before, or you may have heard them but not seen them written down and don't know how to associate the two. For me, that word was paradigm. I knew what it was, I knew how to say it, but whenever I saw it on the page, I used to think paradigm. I don't know what it meant. Okay, anyway, we live and learn. So let's go and have a look at this paragraph here. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire, secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shrivelled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. So the word in there, which I think you perhaps won't have come across before, is covetous. To covet something is to want what somebody else has. And in Scrooge's case, this is probably money. So we need to, do you like these two little things down here? They're so cute. Okay, we need to become what I call literary archaeologists. So if you didn't know what an archaeologist is someone who discovers information about something by brushing away at the surface really carefully to find the hidden layers beneath things, usually like buried treasure or artifacts or mummies or dinosaurs or, you know, my keys when I lose them. Well, maybe not that, but you know what I mean. So that's an archaeologist. Literary archaeologist, we're doing the same, but in a metaphorical way. We're dusting away at these words to get to the connotations beneath, to discover their hidden meanings. Now, I hear you say, Miss, what's that world of work thing doing there? Okay, so being able to ascertain detail and written communication is vital for most careers because, you know, we do email all the time. Wherever you work, you always have an email address. Today's investigative work will help you develop these skills. Also, it's important to realise that we don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And it's important we recognise that Dickens knew this too, and we should consider this when we do today's work. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression is really key for the world of work because well, the first impression you make is likely to be at a job interview. So you don't want to present yourself in the same way that we're being presented with Scrooge here. You want to present yourself in a much more positive light. So it's important that we recognise that actually first impressions do count, especially in the world of work. So with that in mind, let's move on. So we have, this took me ages. Can I just tell you, colour coding, it's a challenge and a half. So we're going to understand, we're going to remember, and we're going to analyse today. And if we get to it, you're going to do a stretch and challenge. So look at this. It looks like ice cream, but not. Anyway, I was distracted at the thought of ice cream. Okay, so we've looked at Dickens' motives for writing. Remember, we did our spider diagram, and we said that he wanted to change stuff. It wasn't just for the fame and the money. He saw something in society, and he wanted to challenge people to correct it, to alter it, to change other people's lives. And now what we need to do is examine what his motives were for creating Scrooge's personality in the way he has. So the first task that we need to do is we need to infer from the section of the text we've just read what kind of personality, character, Dickens has created Scrooge to be. So what is he? If we had to label him, if we had to give him some terminology, some terms, what would he be? Now, Helpful Harvey's over here. Let's see what Helpful Harvey's got to say. Helpful Harvey says, suggested steps to accomplish this task. He's very helpful. That's why his name's Helpful Harvey. So, go through the passage of text, underline any words that you don't understand and look them up in a dictionary. So you know what covetous means now, but if you don't know any of the other words, please do this. Annotate your copy of the text with their definitions. Then you need to infer from the text what kind of personality this means Scrooge has and use an appropriate adjective in your notes. So the text implies and we infer, okay? Make sure when you're writing anything up, the text implies and we infer. And then you can consider how this supports any earlier ideas you formed about Scrooge's character or personality and make links between previous examples and those in this section. For example, the bit about him doing business on the day of Marley's funeral, that might be relevant here. Okay? So you can go ahead on your novella and make up some notes, underline stuff. You can even put up a couple of bullet points in your red exercise book if you wanted to. So go ahead and pause the video and do that, and then come back for the remembering task. Okay, I'm going to assume that you've done that. I'm going to assume that you've paused. I'm going to assume that you've done the most superb job ever. Right, so our next task then, and the reason that we're breaking this down, guys, is because when it's something big like this, it helps you approach a big task and not be terrified of it. It helps you think logically and come up with a plan of action, if you will. So the next task is to identify and analyze identify and analyze the effects of each of the methods, language devices Dickens has employed to create Scrooge's personality character. So, excuse me. Oh gosh. Right. So what we need to do then is, as we're going through, we've inferred from the text what kind of personality Scrooge has, and now we need to figure out how and why Dickens has done that. So the how comes first, then the why afterwards. So how has he done this? Helpful Harvey says we need to read each sentence carefully and consider, what does this tell me about Scrooge's personality? Then you need to determine which key words cause you to have that opinion about his personality and identify which methods have been used to do this. Is it a metaphor? Is it a simile? Is it a personified metaphor? Is it some sibilance? Is it an alliteration to reinforce a point? What is it? Okay. Then, and this is a big task, I'm not going to lie, so we need to consider how each word creates an impression of Scrooge's personality on its own, but then how this combines with other words to enhance the portrayal of his personality. So this is a bit like maths or science. And I know you're thinking, what is she chatting? I know you're thinking, she's lost it. What is she going on about? If you take a metaphor to equal X, okay, X equals a metaphor. And if you take a simile to equal Y, okay, so X equals a metaphor equals this effect. Y equals a simile equals this effect. However, if we plus X, the metaphor, with Y, the simile, then we get an even bigger effect, a more profound effect, a much more significant effect. And it's up to you to say what that effect is. You can't just put that it's an effect. No, yeah, no kidding. Duh. You need to say what that is. But if we then say that B and A are the alliteration and sibilance, so A is your sibilance and B is your alliteration, and we say A plus B equals this effect, plus, but then we could say A plus B plus X and Y equal this, this inference, this personality of Scrooge's, then this is how we're going to get to the really nitty-gritty of analysis and saying why the methods have been used and what effect they're creating, etc., etc., how this has been done. I hope that makes sense. People think that English is all language and all the rest of it, but they don't realise that sometimes it's just as much of a science as it is an art. It's as much adding things together and creating something in a formulaic way as it is being creative and utilizing different words and connotations. These two things are not mutually exclusive, okay? And if all that went over your head, I apologize, but it's worth considering. So if you need to listen to that a couple of times until you get it, please rewind. The J button on your laptop will do that, or you can just, like, if you're on your phone, you can just scroll your finger Scroll your finger. Just don't do what I do and accidentally close the app. I do that all the time. All the time. I'm too heavy-handed. Okay, so that's the next task then. So go ahead and pause the video whilst you do all of this. Okay, I'm going to assume that you've done that. Now, the next bit, there's no helpful Harvey for. There's no helpful Harvey because by the time we get to analysing, guys, you should be able to do this all by your very selves. So the task is to suggest why Dickens has created this impression of the Scrooge at the beginning of the text. What is the point? What is the reader supposed to think of Scrooge here, and why might this be? Now, in class, I did a lot of walking for this, which I obviously can't. I could do now, but you wouldn't see it, so that would be pointless. So imagine I am stood in front of the filing cabinet and I am saying that Scrooge is really, really horrible. And then I take 5 steps over to my desk and I say, and by the end of the book, Scrooge is really, really nice. What is the point in having Scrooge be really, really, really horrible at the beginning of the book? Why isn't he really, really horrible in stave 3? Why don't we find out extra information in stave 1 instead? Diefenbaker is asking that question as well. I'm sure you can hear him. And I will tell you in a bit, but they've got to work it out for themselves. So why is he horrible in stave 1 and not stave 3? But also, why is he really, really horrible? Why isn't he just, he's an all right guy, and then he got a little bit more generous? Why is he so horrible and then ends up being so nice? What is the significance of this change? Okay, so that's something for you to go ahead and write down. Diefenbaker's sneezing because he's figured out the answer and he just can't cope with it. So go ahead and pause the video and write all that down. So you should be able now to write all this up into some sort of paragraphy type deal. And then if you want the stretch and challenge, if you are aiming to get the most out of this analysis task, you can look at the stretch and challenge task, which says, what message is the reader supposed to take away from this section of the text? What might Dickens be challenging them to recognise? So here, guys, this is your contextual detail. You need to know what kind of person is going to buy this book and read it, how that links to A Christmas Carol, and what Dickens is saying to those people specifically. Okay, I'm going to cut this one short for this time because, yes, there are more things to follow, but I think I think 12 minutes or so is enough for this. So go ahead and try this and write it all into your books, write it up into a couple of paragraphs or so, and bring me the work whenever you are back in school. Okay, stay safe, and if you need me, you can email me or you can tweet me. Okay, bye.